was your average overworked bum living cheaply in the heart of Tokyo, until one day he didn't wake up to this hellish life. Instead, he drops his loot from a slime in a world where monsters usually drop food. Little does he know, however, him being a unique drop was only the start of a soon-to-be legendary story. Episode 1. The story begins with our protagonist, Ryota, waking up in a new body, different from his usual filthy, overworked weasel-like body. He stands before a girl adventurer who asks him why he dropped out from the slime poop. He's still unsure what she's talking about, so she shows him, feeding another slime before him. Once she defeats the slime, a few sprouts drop, making Ryota even more confused. She tells him that he appeared as if he was a mob drop. In this world, there is magic, and monsters making it a completely different experience than Ryota is used to. While advancing through the dungeon, she continues defeating slimes, making Ryota ask her when she will be done. She then explains that in this world, there are stats as if it was a game. She tells him that in order to leave or go to a lower level, she needs to increase her stats first. He notices that she has various low-level skills, so she must be weakling. She then offers him to try it out, but once he does, she becomes disappointed. With all F-rank stats and no room to level up, it looks like Ryota is to stay as a normal civilian. Once he inspects the skills, however, he finds all S-rank skills, but she tells him they are the worst of the worst. To confirm his suspicions, he decides to try out one of his skills by using the bamboo stick the girl happens to have, and suddenly a slime appears. So he strikes it a couple times, defeating it without much trouble. Upon defeating it, a ton of items drop, making Ryota sure that he isn't just some random. He then offers to cook him a meal, knowing that he hasn't eaten once since arriving in the dungeon. Somehow the sprouts dropped by the slimes are not only edible, but also don't taste too bad. Following this, she presents a soup to him, and he starts crying from how good it is. He tells her that it reminded him of the last time he had someone cook him a warm meal. With him being a bum, eating whatever was easiest, his health was terrible. Because of this, he was constantly in and out of the hospital until one day he woke up here. He tells himself that this must be a second chance for him after screwing up his previous life. She sees how much he enjoyed the meal, so she brings him in close and tells him he did today. Tells him that he can join her on her adventure or continue on his own. With her being a pretty low level, she is forced to stay in the dungeon to hunt, not getting enough drops to afford housing. She then offers him the bamboo stick and introduces herself as Emily. He introduces himself back to her. Following this, he uses his little sprouts to buy whatever he wants, it being worth a lot more than he thought. With him having the skill drop rates at the S-class, he quickly buys a house in this world. Once acquiring it, he gets Emily and offers her to stay at his place. Before we continue, let's take a moment to answer the question of the day. What anime do you want me to recap next? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in the next video. Now, back to the recap. She is in disbelief, not thinking her simple act of kindness could go so far. Ryota, however, seems like the soup was worth more than anything else, telling her as long as she cooks, he will get the money. Before he leaves to hunt in the dungeons again, she stops him, asking him to take a break from fighting for today. She then asks him to eat her soup every day so that she doesn't feel like she is leeching off him. He gladly accepts and heads to the bank in order to bring out all of his money. Once arriving, he flirts with the clerk, but she shows little to no interest in Ryota. Tells him that despite him being a low-level grunt, he sure does have a ton of money to deposit. Ryota realizes it doesn't matter what world he is in, money rules it all. She then informs him that a new dungeon has opened named Nihonium. With it being relatively unexplored, it is filled with goods. He then asks her to let him leave already, but she tries to seduce the rich man. He offers him to get some drinks, but he denies her request, causing the other co-worker to flame her. Ryota, on the other hand, finally heads home, wondering how he should approach his new girl. After standing outside for a few minutes, he grows the balls to enter, realizing there's nothing to worry about. Instead, however, he is greeted by a fully cleaned place and various things that relax him. Despite her sitting around in the house all day, he urges her to take a break, but she shows no sign of it. He then moves on to talking about the new dungeon, asking if she knows anything about it. She tells him that in the dungeon nothing was dropped, so people stopped exploring it even though it was new. Being the idiot he is, he enters the dungeon and gets attacked by a skeleton. Somehow the skeleton misses him and knocks down a column instead, giving Ryota the kill. Despite there usually not being a drop, he receives a seed that somehow raises his health stat from F to C. Once he learned this, he started farming more and more of the skeletons, with him being the only one who could acquire or use the seeds. Because of this, he realizes just how strong his power is, being able to get stronger while staying at level 1. The next morning, he eats an omelet made by Emily, telling her what he plans to do today. With him hoping to get his HP to S rank today, it scares Emily. She tells him to be home before nightfall, telling him that she worries about him. Following this, he heads into the dungeon to clear more monsters until he finally gets his HP to S rank. This ranking, he is easily able to defeat more slimes that grant him a carrot. As he farms, more adventurers enter the dungeon and find Ryota fighting one. Instead of exchanging greetings, they scan his stats and laugh at him. Once they see he is level 1, they walk away not wanting to deal with the trash, leaving Ryota alone, or so he thinks. Standing behind him is a bunny girl who smacks him in the face, claiming to hate noobs. He doesn't think much of this and collects his carrots to bring home to Emily. Once he presents them to her, she informs him that they are worth his monthly rent. He gets excited, but it's short-lived when the bunny girl knocks on his door. She tells him the same thing as before and smacks him once again this time, telling him she loves him. Episode 2. After this happens, she brings some random man and kills him right in front of Ryota's eyes. She tells him that she also wants to do this to him. He resisted her chops. He realizes it's because of his S-rank HP, which is followed by her presenting a carrot. He tells him that they are the best carrots she has ever had, and she spots the other carrots in the house, so she has no choice but to eat dinner with them. Instead of treating her with hostility, Emily is very welcoming, showing her the ins and outs of cooking carrots. After finishing the first bite of her carrot soup, she realizes she made the right choice staying to eat. She asks Emily how it is so good, to which Ryota reveals he has made sure she can cook him good meals. Once they finish their meals, the bunny girl gets up abruptly and leaves just as strangely as she entered. Emily, on the other hand, is happy that she was just able to enjoy a meal with another person, not caring how they feel. Ryota realizes he used to feel the same way when he was a bum in his past life. Later that week, he heads back into the dungeon, this time to explore the second level of it. Despite having grown slightly, he is still unable to deal a fatal blow to the zombie. Thanks to his S-rank HP, he is able to survive, but that doesn't mean it's any easier to kill the zombies. Eventually, he wins the fight and receives a new kind of seed, giving him an increase in strength. After he consumes the seed, the bunny girl notices him and asks how he got a drop in this dungeon. He tries to avoid the question by offering her some carrots, which clearly entices her. He turns from interested to excited and runs off again, giving Ryota no time to understand her motives. He decides regardless he'll help her out, so he heads to the bank where he presents a carrot to the girl. Everyone acts like she is a monster, but Ryota doesn't see this, winning her over with the carrots. Ezra, the pink-haired clerk, notices this and asks Ryota how he was able to win over the bunny girl. He tells her that he just got some carrots, nothing special, but she seems to think otherwise. She informs him that the bunny girl isn't just any girl, introducing her as Eve, a powerful adventurer who has overcome various feats. With her never liking the carrots that others produce, him having ones that she likes entices Ezra to pay double the market price. Ryota realizes that it's thanks to her that he can profit so much, so he does her a favor and offers more carrots. Little does he know this promise will lead to his downfall. The next day he does the same and gathers tons of carrots, hoping to profit on them again. Before he leaves the dungeon in which he acquired them, he finds some random adventurers struggling to defeat a slime. Some old geezer notices this, so he comes and flexes on them. With a single slash, he defeats the low-level slime, making Ryota wonder what this guy's deal is. He watches as the geezer orders the adventurers to continue fighting even though they have been fighting for 2 days straight. Tells them back in his day he walked 15 miles to the dungeon just to farm slimes for another 15 days. He tells them they need to grow a backbone and surpass their limits, which seems to work somehow. Ryota remembers his past life, working with a boss like him who always ordered them around. As he thinks about this, Emily notices him, so she offers to treat him to some of her cooking. Before they can eat, however, Eve rushes over and indulges in Emily's new special, a carrot pudding. Alongside the carrot pudding, she made fake carrot meat, making him wonder what doesn't have carrots. Despite this, he feels relaxed until the old geezer ruins their vibe, telling his minions to never be like them. Geezer says that no matter the quality of the drop, it should never be for consumption. Eve doesn't take this lightly, however, rushing to the old man and stuffing his minions' faces with carrots. She tells him that he needs to enjoy carrots as well, but he gets scared and runs away. After dealing with this guy, Eve turns back to normal, showing that they can be relaxed in the dungeon. Following this, he carries his carrots back, only to learn that there is a much easier way to transport them. Ezra suggests a shop he should check out that sells shopping carts. He takes her advice, but once entering the place, he is not impressed. With a little girl and old guy working the shop, he wonders if their stuff really works. Despite this, he decides to buy one until he learns that the old man is selling them for up to 2 million. With his monthly rent being around 20,000, he has nowhere near enough money to purchase a cart just yet. With him being a broken bum, he walks back until he sees some gorilla walking around. Despite the adventurers vowing to fight for their town, they all turn tail and run away. Ezra, on the other hand, gets knocked down by the gorilla, causing him to attack her. Before he lands the attack, however, Ryota blocks it with pure strength, giving the other adventurers a chance to fight it. Although he saved the chick, Ryota wasn't able to save the town, being completely demolished. He then realizes that if he defeats the gorilla, he will probably get some godly drop, so he rushes it. By using the others as body shields, he rushes in and somehow one-shots the gorilla with a single combo attack. Upon defeating it, everyone in the town cheers for him, but he has other objectives. He wonders where the drop from the gorilla is, so he looks around until he finds something shining brightly. Episode 3. Sitting before him is a handgun along with a bag to carry the ammunition. Ryota wonders how such an item from another world could drop here. Despite this, he continues to hone his skill, becoming stronger with every day. This time he fights zombies, hoping to raise his strength stat all the way up to the S rank. With his new gun as well, he has no problem taking the zombies down one by one. Although the gun is strong, it has a limited number of bullets, causing Ryota to be careful with his shots. He meets with Emily and tells her that thanks to the gun, he has been able to raise his strength stat all the way up to B rank. While he eats, however, he feels something is missing, wondering where Eve is today. He knows that although she isn't here today, she will probably show up sometime soon unannounced. He makes sure to relax during this quiet time until the unexpected shows up. As he ventures to the dungeon, he finds smelly cockroaches, making him remember his past self. Then suddenly, a large explosion happens nearby. But to Ryota's surprise, it was just Emily. She stares into his soul with her soulless eyes, telling him that the cockroaches deserve to die. From one of the cockroaches, she gets a watermelon, making Ryota wonder if they should take that back. As they adventure more of the dungeon, Emily stumbles upon the motherload of cockroaches. This brings her past her boiling point, so she starts going berserk on the roaches. Before she gets too crazy, Ryota decides to waste more of his ammo, shooting at the hundreds of roaches. Upon killing them, it's huge fruit from the roaches, ruining his appetite even more. Then suddenly, Eve smacks through the pile of fruit and demands that Ryota hand over his carrots. Before this, however, she helps him carry the fruit to the guild, where he exchanges them for today's allowance. As he goes to sell the other half, however, half of the fruit is eaten, causing Emily to go crazy. She smashes one of them, causing hundreds, if not thousands of roaches to erupt. Ryota tries to shoot them again, but this time he is completely out of ammunition, forcing him to succumb to begging the roaches to leave them alone. Eventually, things clear up. Ryota is surprised to find a new round of ammo spawning in for him on the ground. He then heads back to the guild to flirt with Ezra, where she tells him that if you leave mob drops on the ground, it will spawn monsters. Once he learns this, he wonders if he could force spawn a bunch of monsters. While he thinks about this, Ezra tries to ask him out yet again. He is too busy to go on dates. Later that night, he throws a carrot into the middle of the forest, hoping that it will spawn a monster for him. To his surprise, however, Eve spawns in, showing that no matter where the carrot is, she will detect it. After using 9 of his 10 carrots on Eve, he finally succeeds, spawns in a slime monster. With a single shot, he gets more bullets, wondering what would happen if he did it with a stronger monster. After he gets this thought, he heads back into the dungeon, where he tries to pick up a seed without claiming it. Despite this loophole, he's unable to raise his HP or spawn in a new monster with the drops. Just when he is about to give up, he encounters another skeleton on his way out. With his upgraded strength, he is easily able to knock it back, but to his surprise, when he does, it disappears into nothing. He heads back to the guild after this, where Ezra explains to him once a monster leaves the dungeon, they die, unless it's from a mob drop. Once again, she tries to confess her feelings for him. However, he ignores her feelings yet again. He then heads into the dungeon the following day and tries to do the same move, but this time killing the skeleton outside of the dungeon before it disappears. This time it drops a new kind of ammunition, a freezing bullet. He decides to try this out on some nearby try, completely freezing it over with a single shot. Following this, he abuses these bullets to help Emily defeat slimes with ease to get even more carrots. She is impressed with his new skill, but doesn't ask too many questions, knowing that Ryota is a man of secrets. Then finally, after a full day of dungeon hunting, he heads back to the town with all of his carrots. As they walk, however, he is stopped by a merchant and a young girl arguing with each other. The merchant tells Ryota to bring his cargo up from the mountain, blaming it on the girl. Once they look down, it's a far drop, making them wonder how they are supposed to collect the goods. Because of this, the girl tries to burn it, but this angers the greedy merchant, telling her that it's too valuable to get rid of. Just as they think everything is okay, the mob drops within the cargo summon a monster, thus taking over the merchant's body. Ryota, however, has his Glock, so he just shoots the merchant a few times, giving him the chance to easily take him down. Despite defeating the first one, there are still many more at the bottom of the valley, causing the woman to urge them to run. She tells them she was paid to protect the greedy merchant, so she has to stay and fight. Once she says this, it makes Ryota remember when he was taken advantage of at his previous job by his boss. Because of this memory, Ryota decides to step in and help this time, shooting his ice bullets, thus freezing the monsters. Emily follows this attack by jumping all the way down and surviving while taking out the monsters. They then head to a status board to check their levels again, where Emily finds her stats have greatly increased. Episode 4. After heading to the guild for the day, he learns that today there are rare monsters within the dungeon. Once he hears this, he heads straight in, only to find more low-level slimes. One of them drops a necklace, so Ryota presents it to Emily, telling her to sell it for a high price. Emily becomes disappointed, thinking that Ryota was giving her a necklace to be nice. She then takes her anger out on the monsters, where she continues getting rare drops. With these rare drops, she heads back to their house to cook them up. While they are chilling there, Ryota tells Emily that with the amount of money they make now, they can afford a nicer house. This makes Emily sad, thinking that he plans on leaving her, but he has no such choice. He tells her that the dishes don't do themselves, so he needs her to come with him. Once he finishes discussing this, he heads to the guild to sell the last of his mob drops. After presenting them, however, Ezra tells him they are too rare to process, catching the eye of another. Some lady walks over and slices the drop up into bite sizes, then takes a bite. She tells Ryota that she has never had a flavor like this before, begging to let her buy all the bamboo shorts from Ryota. She then presents to Ryota a little bit of pocket change, making him realize he just got scammed. Following this, Ezra informs Ryota the woman he spoke with just now is named Macy, a highly regarded gourmet. She tells Ryota that after seeing all of his skills, she wants to formally form a contract with him. He asks for all the rights to his goods, telling him that no one has goods like he does. He then accepts without putting up a fight, knowing he needs to go to the dungeon and farm some monsters. Once he enters, however, he finds a group of low-level adventurers being led by a blonde girl. Then one of the members of her party approaches him, informs him that the girl before him is Princess Margaret, and waves to her and asks what a princess is doing in a dungeon. The man explains that she has a high-ranked drop skill that gives her air once she defeats the skeletons. He proceeds by telling Ryota that they store the air inside of small boxes, which are then stored in their magic cart. This makes Ryota consider purchasing one with him, having saved his money for a bit. He decides to put off moving and instead purchase a magic cart to allow them to hunt more. The following day, once they arrive at the shop, they find Olga, the small girl, crying. She tells Ryota and Emily that her dad left for milk but hasn't returned since. Ryota then decides to find her dad and bring him back, heading off into a nearby dungeon. Once he arrives, he finds different monsters than what he's used to. He tries to shoot them, but it does no damage, causing Emily to become the main attacker. As they continue adventuring the dungeon, they eventually find Olga's dad sleeping in the middle of the dungeon. With him showing no signs of waking up while looking relaxed, this angers Emily. She smacks him in the head, waking him up to ask what is going on. Ryota counters by asking him what he is doing, having set out to find him. The old geezer then explains that he has been searching for a specific drop, telling Ryota that it would help him make a new type of cart. Once Ryota hears this, he decides to help him out in taking down the monsters. Once they defeat one, they leave the dungeon only for the old geezer to leave the drop in the open. He tells them to wait a moment, expecting a monster to spawn in from the drop. Then suddenly the monster appears again, but the old geezer is too slow to capture it. Ryota thinks fast and shoots it with his freeze bullet, thus stunning it from advancing any further into the air. With this drop, the old geezer seems satisfied with this so much, he gives Ryota the new type of magic cart completely free of charge. He tells them that thanks to them, they are able to make new carts and upscale to other customers. He then heads back into the dungeon, this time with his magic cart where he fills it up. After this, he wonders just how much stuff is stored within, so he takes it straight to the guild. Once he enters, however, he finds a conflict going on between Ezra and some random thug. He seems mad about not getting the full price for something. He tries to punch Ezra, the clerk, in the face. Ryota notices this and stops him, telling the thug that if his stuff isn't even that high of quality. Following this, he whips out his magic cart and items of his own, showing off to the thug. He then counts the amount the thug had and tells him that Ezra did nothing wrong, just not getting enough goods. This enrages the thug, so he tries to strike Ryota, but he's defeated instantly, saving Ezra in the process. This causes her to feel even more indebted to him, knowing that she is just a lowly clerk while he is a strong adventurer. She expresses that her only wish is to make everyone happy while shopping in her store on her own. Once Ryota hears this, he tells her that he wouldn't be able to make it this far without her, vowing to always protect her if she needs. After Ezra hears this, she finally gains the courage to show her feelings, leaning in to give a kiss to Ryota. She tells him that was from her, not from her position as the store's clerk. Ryota then goes to the dungeon later that day, wondering how he should feel about her advancements. He thinks about letting her move in with him, but realizes he needs a new house first. Because of this, he heads home to pack up all his stuff, telling Emily just because they are packing up doesn't mean they won't stay together. After they move in, he wakes up in the new house to find not only Emily, but also Eve now squatting in his place. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out the winner of the last video's top comment, Blazax Edits. Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in the next video, episode 5. As usual, Ryota is seen in the dungeon, farming mobs while hoping to level up his stats. With him on the third floor of the dungeon, against mummies he earns speed stats with each kill. Thanks to his strength being S rank and his speed now leveling up, monsters are finally becoming easier to kill. Little does Ryota know, however, he is about to be hassled by a man named Nep. With him having women on both shoulders, Ryota can only feel insignificant in his presence. Nep then moves on to the topic at hand, asking Ryota that he wants to arm wrestle him. Ryota, on the other hand, knows that this guy is just trying to show off, so he accepts, hoping to put him in his place. Then when they start, Ryota notices off the bat that he isn't just some nobody, being able to match Ryota's strength. Eventually, however, Ryota gets the best of him, impressing everyone in the tavern. Ryota wonders what the big deal is, then remembers that this guy is a big shot from a large adventurers group. He tries to leave the area after putting on a show, but Nep has other plans. He throws a punch at Ryota, but he gets launched back along with his side chicks. Nep, however, seems to not care about this at all, inviting Ryota to join him into his famous group. He rejected the offer, of course, having his own girls back at his home base. Emily tells him that she is proud of him defending himself, finally showing others that anyone can become strong. The following day, on his way into the dungeon, he encounters the princess's guards transporting air again. Them having a box that automatically sucks up the air dropped by the skeletons, they have their scheme all sorted out. He then offers Ryota a few as a gift, making Ryota wonder what he is going to do with a bunch of air. As he thinks of what to do, he gets an idea to transport the seeds into the box, thus allowing him to take them outside. After he does this, he defeats the skeletons to acquire more freezing bullets. Emily, on the other hand, looks at him like he's crazy, pointing his gun at a box. Then suddenly a mummy and zombie emerge, giving Ryota the chance to get new bullet types. With one being red, the system tells him it's a fire bullet, then inspects the other bullet and learns that they are nothing like the rest. He stocks up on them. Right before he heads back to his base, he feels a big shockwave, making him uneasy. Then heads to the guild to exchange his goods, where he has to confront Ezra for the first time since their kiss. He acts awkwardly, but eventually Ezra's charm brings him back to normal. He asks her about this strange feeling he had earlier, which causes her to explain to him what it was. He tells him that it was a magic storm that is coming, making it to where he has no chance of using magic. On top of this, the drops in dungeons are lower, making it a slower season for most shops. As they talk, some random enters, begging people for help. His filthy beggar clothes. Everyone frowns down upon him, including Ryota, until Nep suddenly emerges, asking Ryota why he isn't helping. He explains that in Silicon, the place the random needs help in, there is a magic storm brewing up. Inside of these storms are an influx of monsters, scaring away even the strongest of adventurers. Ryota, however, isn't just anyone, offering the filthy beggar some assistance in the Silicon dungeon. The sister being trapped in the third floor of the dungeon, Ryota has to rush in order to not get caught up in the magic storm. With him having his gun, the magic storm seems to have little effect on him, considering he is still a level 1 with no real skills. Eventually, he gets to the second level of the dungeon to find monsters that drop new kinds of foods. After some searching, he finds some filthy girl just as ragged as her brother, confirming it's the right person. While this happens, Emily and Eve learn of Ryota's whereabouts and rush to his side. While they run, Emily shares a memory of her mother, telling her of the time she turned a monster into wine. With this wine, she always kept her party members happy, keeping the overall vibe great. That was until one day when they left the wine out for too long, thus causing a dragon to spawn. He ended up winning the fight, saving Emily, but at the cost of her own life. Ever since this day, Emily has always struggled and saw people who helped others as heroes like her mom. Emily explains that this is the exact reason why she likes him so much, knowing he is probably risking his life right now. Eventually, the groups meet up together amidst the dungeon, with Eve offering more bullets to Ryota. With the three of their combined skills, the group easily defeated the monsters blocking their path, allowing them to leave the dungeon. Once they exit, they find the filthy beggar standing outside, asking Ryota if he can help his sister recover. As if he hasn't done enough already, Ryota accepts and uses the white bullet on her, revealing its use as a healing bullet. Episode 6. This time, while visiting the guild to flirt with Ezra, he asks to show her his melons. After this happens, Eric emerges and tells him there's no need for her to assess his melons. After one bite, she imagines herself on a beach, making the others want a bite. Once Ezra sees how exclusive his goods are, she asks him once again to sell them all exclusively to her. She then tells him about one of the dungeon rules, with dungeon levels 1, 5 being accessible to anybody going to 6. 10 requires a special license. Because of this, she suggests he go visit some fruit store where he can buy a license. When he confronts the clerk, however, he shows little interest in Ryota, telling him to shut it and follow him. He places a melon from a level 6 dungeon on the stand and tells him he will have to defeat it to go further. Suddenly, a steel slime emerges, causing Ryota to try his luck. He uses his S-rank strength to punch it, but it does little damage, forcing him to use his gun. With a fire bullet to start and an ice bullet to follow it, allows Ryota to defeat it with a single tap. He explains that by heating it up and freezing it, the contents get broken down, making it easy to destroy. The clerk, on the other hand, is super impressed, finally showing some emotion. He tells Ryota that he is their country's hope, asking him to come back soon after getting to level 10. Before he does this, however, Ryota decides to purchase a tuna worth a whopping 1.5 million. He reveals the reason he bought this is to summon the gorilla again for its drops. The gun from before this time, he makes quick work of it, gaining himself another gun to use. He picks up the second gun and tells Emily he is planning on dual-wielding them to become stronger. Later that day, once he arrives at the guild, he sees Ezra in a bad mood. She tells him that because of a group, her access to anything below the 6th floor has been cut off. Ryota decides to change this, so he heads to the dungeon to see what's going on. Once he arrives, he finds Nep waiting for him, hoping to warn him before he rushes in. Tells Ryota that he is planning on destroying them himself. Ryota has other plans, however, telling him that he plans on taking on the thugs blocking the entrance himself. With his 2 guns, he knocks all the initial people out with a sleeping bullet. Ryota explains that by combining his bullets, he can make different kinds, including a sleeping bullet, combining 2 healing bullets. Nep realizes how strong this can be, him now having many more types of attacks. They then tie the thugs up and head outside, where Ryota gets recognized by some old bum. He then brings Ryota back to his place, where he introduces himself as Gray, dungeon chief. Explains that he wants to enlist Ryota to help him in a battle for a new dungeon. This dungeon having meat as its drops, Ryota considers the possibilities of food Emily could make. Ryota, however, wonders why they can't just share the drops with everybody instead of assigning it to someone specific. This enrages the old man, however, forcing him to consume 6 8-balls in a single munch without a second thought. He then offers Ryota that he can provide some for himself if he fulfills his request. On the way home, Ryota thinks about all the things he needs, realizing this is a lot like a business trip. He then goes to tell Emily about his plans, which amazes her. She tells him that usually only big groups are able to take on jobs like this. She informs him she will hold down the house, but this causes Ryota to ask her to come. Eve then suddenly appears, demanding that she come along as well, get a surplus of carrots before he leaves. He goes with the second option and starts venturing towards the dungeon alongside Emily. They venture all day until it eventually hits nightfall, causing them to set up camp. Ryota lets Emily do the stuff inside the tent while he plans on collecting water. Then finally, after waiting, Emily informs him that their place is ready. Once he enters, to his surprise, it's fully furnished with a full meal included. She explains that she brought it all in her backpack, including his favorite dessert. Following this, she tells him that they need to burn their trash once they finish, telling him they also turn into monsters. Ryota gets the idea of farming one of these, wondering what kind of drop it has, places it outside, and it spawns in Frankenstein, causing him to pull out his guns. Although one isn't enough, when he whips out his second sword, the monsters get defeated with ease. The next day he does the same thing, but this time with a green slime. After it's spawned in, he uses his new green bullet from the Frankenstein, revealing it's a homing bullet. They then head into town to turn in their drops until they stumble upon a large pile of trash. Standing before this trash is a beauty using high-level fire magic to prevent it from turning into monsters. While this happens, more trash gets dumped, causing Ryota to feel empathetic towards the girl. With her looking severely overworked, he takes action and rushes in to try and help the girl. They run over and try to convince her to stop. She persists, telling them she is fine using her magic. If it was the perfect time to approach, however, when she does use her magic, she faints into Ryota's arms.